On this edition of Native Report, we learn of the unique relationship between the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians and the city of Palm Springs, California. We tour the Agua Caliente Cultural Museum and visit the Great Oak, a living, growing entity of cultural importance to the Pechanga Band of Luiseno Indians in Southern California. We also hear from our elders and learn something new about Indian country on this Native Report.
Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee Metawakanton Sioux Community, the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, the Blandin Foundation, and the Grotto Foundation.
Welcome to Native Report. I'm Stacy Thunder. Two signs greet you as you drive into the city of Palm Springs, California. One letting you know you're entering the city, the other telling you you are entering the Agua Caliente Reservation. These signs are subtle indicators of the unique government-to-government relationship between the reservation and the city, and that relationship is key to the success of both communities.
The Agua Caliente Reservation and the city of Palm Springs, California share borders different than most neighboring communities. Every other square mile is reservation property, creating a checkerboard pattern. Both communities see this as beneficial. Agua Caliente Chairman Richard Milanovic explains.
We have strived, and I think it's very important to let our membership understand, as well as the city understand, we're in this community jointly. What happens to us is going to happen in the same vein with the city or with our neighbors. So I say, if we can work together on any given issue, we'll all be that much better off. And I think the city understands that, the tribal members understand that. Naturally, there's times when we come to heads, we come to locks with one another, but by and large, we've learned how to work together. We have quarterly meetings with the city of Palm Springs. We've had semi-quarterly meetings with City Cathedral City and Rancho Mirage. We have another meeting with City of Palm Springs coming up where we sit down and talk about the issues that we feel are necessary to talk about in an open forum so everyone understands this is what we see as an issue, and it gives them the same opportunity to say, we see these as issues, can we somehow work out a workable, amiable agreement between all of us? And we have.
Palm Springs Mayor Steve Pugnier cited many instances as to how the two communities have benefited from this unique arrangement. He gave the welcome address at the 66th Annual Convention of the National Congress of American Indians.
Some of the things that we have done historically to show each other how important that partnership is, we've partnered on joint federal public lands highways grant applications, entered into agreements on design and constructions of actually bridges here in the city of Palm Springs. I'm very proud to say the city of Palm Springs has this incredible relationship with the Agua Caliente Band of Indians, one that I think is a model for any other city and tribe out there in the country. That is how important it is to us.
It was 1977 when agreements were reached between the Cahuilla Nation and the local governments over issues mutually important to both parties.
Prior to that time, when the city had jurisdiction over our land, which is a big checkerboard, every other square mile is reservation, the other is fee, which was owned by the 7th Civic, and actually it was sold over the years, but individuals owned it. So what we had in the city of Palm Springs in the 50s, 60s, up to the 70s was a zoning map showing what Indian land as watercourse, Indian land as low density, Indian land as the bare minimal development which would be allowed, whereas right across the street, high density, high-end uses, commercial. From that time on, we've had the ability to control our own destiny. So again, by fate, by fortune, That's when we began to, within our own right, within our members' rights, to be one as we saw fit.
As with other communities in Indian country, tribal gaming has made a difference in Palm Springs.
It has changed the lives of our members inasmuch that it affords us the ability to venture out into other economic development. It affords us the ability to fund the education, to a larger degree, are funding our educational matters, our cultural identity. Education is so important to us. We had a scholarship program within the tribe prior to gaming, because we thought education was important to give our members an opportunity, give them a leg up if they so desire. We just are able to fund it even to a greater extent now and make it widely available to more members, to give them a broader breadth of opportunities as far as education, not just your trade school, not just cosmetology or welding school. From the perspective of getting a higher education, but also getting a cultural education, understanding who better that you are from way back, not just from today, that you're a tribal member and you have maybe your tribe, one of your tribal businesses is a casino, but it goes much deeper than that. It's who you are, what you represent, and how long you've been representing that. And as you become of age and as you go forward, that will carry you with that self-esteem and that self-worth. That'll make you a better citizen, both from the tribal perspective as well as the community perspective, becoming an asset overall to this great community, to this great state, to this great country of ours. The economic development, we started a larger hotel downtown, on the edge of the reservation, Agua Caliente Hotel. It was a major facility that will be of a benefit for years to come, not just tomorrow, for years and years and years. It's setting the groundwork for additional development for us to use the resources that have been made available to us to the degree that we can better, again, not only ourselves, but the community.
Having the National Congress of American Indians come to his tribe's homeland is an honor for Richard Milanovic. He sees the event as important for all Indian people from across the nation.
Having NCAI here personally makes me feel very proud, and I know our membership is very proud. I know our council is very proud of having people from across, Indian people from across the country, including Alaska, visiting this great, our home, our Aboriginal home, and talk about, that's what's so important about NCI, is us coming together as a group of people and talking about what it means to be Indian, what it means to talk about the issues, the heartaches, the triumphs of what can be done. Next time NCI gets together, the people are coming together talking about how nice it is to be who we are and why we feel the way we do. It's a marvelous thing, Ted. It's not something that cannot be taken away. However hard others try to take it away from us, they can't. That's the great thing about unity. Staying together as one, and this is just another link as we build in that chain of life for Indian people. One more link, making us that much stronger. I'm very proud.
Did you know the discovery of gold in California at Sutter's Mill in 1848 had a devastating effect on its Indian tribes? As a new state, California needed to make land available for rapid settlement. Congress appropriated money and sent commissioners out to negotiate with the tribes. In 1851, federal agents negotiated 18 treaties with the California tribes. Each provided for the surrender of large native landholdings in return for small plots of lands for the tribes. But when the terms of the agreement became known, the California state legislature formally protested the assignment of any new land to the Indians. The tribes had already begun traveling to the proposed reservations, and so when the United States Senate rejected the 18 treaties in 1852, the Indian people had nowhere to go. Due to disease and violence during and after the gold rush, the California Indian population went from an estimated 150,000 prior to the gold rush to fewer than 25,000 by the turn of the 20th century. Today, California has one of the largest Native American populations.
The Agua Caliente Cultural Museum is located in the heart of Palm Springs. The museum's collections focus on the history of the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians and other Cahuilla bands. It also showcases contemporary arts. Artifacts are continually added to the museum's growing collections that tell the story of the vibrant, living culture of the Cahuilla people.
Tucked away in the heart of Palm Springs, with the San Jacinto Mountains as a backdrop, sits the Agua Caliente Cultural Museum.
We started off with exhibits. Tribal members were donating some of their personal collections to the museum. And we've really grown in this space, and I think grown in terms of the quality of the exhibits that we do. There are 9 bands of the Cahuilla, of which the Agua Caliente are the band that is here in Palm Springs. They speak a Uto-Aztecian language, which is the same language base that obviously the Aztecians spoke, but also the Shoshone have that language also. So that gives you an idea of some of the connections. They came here and they were amazing people in terms of making a living in what is perceived to be a rather harsh environment. But I think the Agua Caliente knew this environment better than anyone will ever know it. The first non-native that came through the area was in 1776, and that was Dianza, who came up through Borrego Springs. Took a long time for people to come here. Then what happened in the late 1800s, that our federal government, in order to get Southern Pacific Railroad to build a line between LA and Yuma, Yuma being the big port city in Arizona, they gave them every other section, every other square mile for 10 miles on either side of the right-of-way of the railroad. This is why Palm Springs is a checkerboard pattern.
The Cahuilla people are famous for their basketry, but are known for their pottery as well.
If you say Agua Caliente or Cahuilla, people immediately think of baskets. They were just amazing basket weavers, and it always amazes me when I think about it that these are objects that are utilitarian objects. They did not have to be as beautiful as they are, intricate designs that they are, because they were basically used to hold grain or other foodstuffs. But the baskets here were watertight, so they could carry water in their baskets. They cooked in their baskets. They would put grain in there and throw in some hot rocks and stir it around to parch the grain and get the nutritional aspects out of it. The baskets are stunning. Pottery came later. I mean, this is an amazing tribe in that baskets were here long before pottery. They utilized 3 main plants, one being chia, one being mesquite, the other being acorn. I mean, when summer comes and Palm Springs turns 120 degrees, Cahuilla went up into the mountains, and that's when they gathered their acorns and processed them. So those were the foods, but there were also rabbit out here to utilize. There were peninsula bighorn sheep. It was a tremendous resource if you knew what you were looking for.
The museum items, baskets, pottery, paintings, and others have all been donated by the people of the Agua Caliente Nation. All are silent testament to the Agua Caliente's rich and vibrant culture.
We have all kinds of things that tribal members have donated to us. What's heartwarming to tribal members and to the museum staff is the number of people in Palm Springs who have donated objects that have been in their family for like 60 or 70 years. And they walk in and say, here's a Cahuilla basket that we've had for 50 years. And we know the person who made it, and my grandfather bought it. And so for us to get that kind of information is really wonderful. We're getting a lot of tribal members coming in now, bringing really baskets full of old archival photographs. And when we sit down and talk to them, you realize that it's not just identification of the people, it's the stories behind those people that just sort of pull this whole thing into one wonderful unit of understanding for us. Last year we had an exhibit here called Kuya Cowboys, where the Indians were truly the first cowboys in California. And that exhibit was voted best exhibit in the West. So we were very pleased to receive that award and hope that it travels to NMAI.
As plans move forward for a new, expanded museum, Hammond is committed to the belief that knowledge is a tool for empowerment. The new museum will be a place to teach and share the history of the Agua Caliente with new generations. We
have a great vision. Right now we're in 1,800 square feet, and we have leased from the tribe 8.65 acres right on Tockwitz, one of the main streets in Palm Springs. 8.65 acres, and we're putting up a 110,000 square foot museum. It's a tremendous undertaking. The tribe is very supportive of it. The city of Palm Springs is supportive of this endeavor. And it really grew not from that we have such a large collection of artifacts, and we do have substantial collections, but it really grew from listening to tribal elders and hearing the stories that they had to tell. We could fill an entire museum with court cases involving sovereignty and try to explain that to people. So we're really looking at a museum that is more of a story-based museum and less of an object-based museum. I think it's a museum that people from other tribal nations could come here and say, look at how they're telling the story about sovereignty. Look at how they're dealing with land issues, water rights, language issues. And I think in that way we will be a museum for all Native peoples.
We, as Indian people in those days, could see that the snowball effect of impact was permanent, and that it was going to increase. And so I think that our ancestors in those days had to make some real tough and practical decisions, keeping in mind what was going to be happening to the generations that would follow them. I think that they were thinking about our survival first of all, but how we could manage to hold on to what was most important to us on the ground here on Mother Earth in North America. And so I think that at that time our great grandparents were making preparations for what they would do for the generations that would come after them.
The Great Oak of the Pechanga Band of Luiseno Indians is a living entity that is revered for its cultural and spiritual significance. Estimated by some to be nearly 1,500 years old, this magnificent tree has come to embody the strength, wisdom, longevity, and determination of the Pechanga people.
This is known as the Great Oak to local people and the Pechanga people, and it's a coastal live oak, but it's unlike any coastal live oak in existence. It's a spirit tree, it's a person in our belief.
On the Pechanga Reservation in Southern California is what appears to be several ordinary trees and bushes. But this is just one tree, and as you pull back the branches and walk under the canopy, you enter a very special place.
Some of the trees, like this one possibly, was one of the first people. The kamalam, they call them. There were different things. The fog, trees, certain rocks, and they were before death came into our world. I like to say that this is one of those trees from this time, because this is kind of analogy would be like the Lord of the Rings type of world. You know, it still has its roots in that world, and it's also staying here. For whatever reason, we don't know. People ask, well, how old is the tree? And we say, we don't know. Coastal live oaks grow in a certain way. Like even if you did those tree rings, cores or something, you can't really tell. Officially, we think it's 800 to 2,000 years old. Now, coastal live oaks, generally, they'll live to about 300 years, thereabouts. And if you ask the tree expert, dendrologists and other types, they says there's no way this kind of tree could live to be, you know, over 1,000 years old. But in the next sentence they'll say, but we've never seen a tree like this either.
The land the great oak sits upon has a turbulent history, from a treaty that was signed but never ratified and later rejected by Congress, to the forced removal of the Pechanga from the valley, and to the creation of the Pechanga Reservation by executive order. The one constant has been the great oak itself.
Even when we were evicted in the 1880s and people were starving and from hunger and dying, you know, in 1882 when the reservation was formed by executive order, it was a very cold and wet winter and people were dying, and yet we didn't cut these trees down for firewood. We wouldn't do that. One of the reasons is because our tradition, trees are people, and they sustain us. They helped us through drought, through famine, through our eviction to this side of the valley. This tree and the land surrounding it is still full of that magic that Indians, you know, believe in.
In 2001, the Pechanga Tribal Council purchased the property and in 2003 had it placed into federal trust. It was their intention to preserve the tree and the surrounding land. This is one example of the cultural preservation efforts by the Pechanga Nation.
We're doing a number of things to try to save our ways, our culture, our language. Like most tribes, our language is in really, you know, bad shape. California tribe's been decimated, and we're a very small tribe. And there's 6 Luiseno tribes, bands, and Pechanga is one of them. And some of the other bands still have older people, elders that speak the language, but they're in their 80s now, and Luiseno is their first language. And our tribe, most of our native-born speakers have gone. Yet we've developed these programs where we're instructing our children in the language in the cultural ways. When we're close to the public, we protect this area very, very closely, and you have to be invited in here and be our guests. We limit it to 20 people at a time because of the soil compaction issues.
As Dubois pointed out, the great oak isn't totally off limits, and for those who have been invited to visit the tree, its effect and meaning differs from individual to individual.
It has a sense of wisdom, it's ancient, it has a presence, and we've brought many people in here, and some people, they'll just start crying, you know, men and women, and other people, it won't talk to them. And we try to share it with our friends and guests if they come in a respectful way, because it'd be wrong to completely close it off, because this is a live creature. Personally, this tree means to me that we're still centered and balanced. We're still trying to keep our ways. And Pechanga people have been on this land. Traditionally, we're known as Atacham, the people, or Payum Kawichim, when we're relating to other tribes, people of the West. And we've been on this land for at least 10,000 years. The archaeological record is 6,000 to 8,000. It keeps getting pushed further and further and further back. And so our presence is here. And if you walk among our land, you'll feel that. You'll feel there's something here. This tree being here still is telling us that we're still centered, or trying to be centered, and we're being pulled in many directions with the Western world, assimilation, acculturation, those type things. I'm an acculturated Indian, you know. I'm Pechanga Indian, but yet I grew up in the Western world. I went to Western schools, graduate school and all of that. But when I come here, it has a certain feel for me.
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us on the web at nativereport.org. Thank you for spending this time with your friends and neighbors in Indian Country. I'm Stacy Thunder. See you next time on Native Report.
Stacy Thunder is an enrolled member of and legal counsel for the Red Lake Nation. And Tad Johnson is an enrolled member of the Boys Fort Band of Ojibwe and is Solicitor General for the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee Metawakanton Sioux Community, the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, the Blandin Foundation, and the Grotto Foundation. Stacy Thunder is an enrolled member of and legal counsel for the Red Lake Nation. And Tad Johnson is an enrolled member of the Boys Fort Band of Ojibwe and is Solicitor General for the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee Metawakanton Sioux Community, the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, the Blandin Foundation, and the Grotto Foundation.